so many people. Oh, thank you so much for being here. Oh, Judi and I, oh my gosh, we've been working together to fulfill a dream of making this reunion a reality. A part of our efforts to create a UCI dance legacy where we celebrate the rich history of our school, our mentors, fellow alumni, and friends. But we could not have done this alone. Let me recognize our indispensable artistic advisor, Laird Rodet. Could you please stand, Laird? And would you please stand our reunion committee, Melanie, Toni, Patrice, Nancy, Rita, and Sherr.
And me.
Sherr even did a dance on our group page to recruit people, didn't you, Sherr? Okay, and Laird did too. He did a video. Our first reunion was in 2015, and many of you were here. It's just so wonderful, our great legacy. It was at that gathering that my husband, James Penrod, announced the Legacy Project. Our first initiative was to produce a documentary about the founding of the UCI Dance Department. And as we move forward, it is our hope to establish a Dance Legacy Scholarship Fund for dance students. Today, we will be celebrating a few of our dance teachers who have passed on. And you can see our poster of them, and honor 3 beloved faculty members as well as 1 outstanding alumni. Now I'd like to introduce my co-chair, Judi. She was bass in 1965. Lapin, a UCI charter student, the first student at UCI from 1965. Judi.
Thank you all for coming. It's wonderful to see all of you here. It's so very rewarding. And it has been a lot of work, but it certainly paid off today. Miguel, I think I need just a little help getting this back up to my height here. Sorry. There we go. I want to thank our sponsors. You're listed in the program. We could not have made this day possible without you. We're terribly grateful for the donations. Thank you very much. Well, we're all here together today to celebrate and pay homage to the dance education and performances over the remarkable 56 years of the UCI Dance Department. There is so much talent and accomplishment in this room. It's really a wow. I mean, so many of you went on to dance professionally, and some of you are still dancing. Some of you started your own dance education programs at colleges and universities. We have this esteemed honorees and experienced faculty here, and we're so pleased to have you. It's really quite awesome. And you know, but the only thing is that I do have one thing on all of you. I was here first. I am a charter student, as Rita said, which means that you were one of the 1,400 enrolled on day 1 of UCI, October 4th, 1965. It was very special. There were only 9 dance students in the department. We all had the same 4 classes. And I actually still have my first notebook. We had ballet, theory, freestyle, choreography, all taught by Eugene Loring. It's pretty amazing. We took class at portable bars, on the stage of the Crawford Hall Gymnasium. Not so glamorous. So you had Chopin playing on one side of the divider, and then basketballs banging against the plastic divider on the other side. So it was rough around the edges, but it was highly professional at the same time. Not merely the atmosphere of a school, but an arts conservatory. It was very exciting, and even at 17, I was aware of how very special it was. And the training across my years at UCI could not have been better. It was exceptional. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our presentation, a salute to our founding faculty. A world of talented individuals have made UCI Dance what it is today. And across our future events, we hope to honor each and every one of them. But today we wanted to tie to the original theme of the Dance Legacy Project and go back to the beginning and honor our founders and one special professor emeritus. So it's my pleasure to talk about Clayton Garrison. He was the founding dean of the School of Fine Arts at UCI. He was a visionary stage director, choreographer, and theater professor who left a lasting imprint on UCI and was today known as the Claire Trevor School of the Arts. In the words of Jan Plastino, UCI Dance came from the brilliant mind of Clayton Garrison, who had the idea of making dance a separate study and a professional program, which was greatly modeled after Eugene Loring's American School of Dance. Dean Garrison was invited by founding Chancellor Daniel Aldrich to create a Department of Arts in 1964, the year before the campus opened. Garrison insisted that a single department with all of the arts lumped together would not suffice, so he devised a plan for a conservatory within the academy, which then became the School of Fine Arts, which was one of UCI's 5 original schools. Being blessed with those movie star looks and this incredible theatrical voice, this iconic man came to my high school in Anaheim. You can only imagine how he affected me. He was looking for recruits-minded students, arts-minded students to recruit to UCI. And then he shared that Eugene Loring, the famous Eugene Loring, who I clearly knew who that was, would be heading up the dance department and that you could earn a degree in the process. After applying and being approved academically, I was invited to a personal interview with Dean Garrison. My father took me that day to UCI, and we were escorted into Dean Garrison's small but rather makeshift office. I had no bigger fan than my father, but to my horror, he pulled out a huge pack of photos of me dancing and began to talk to Dean Garrison about my performance experience. I thought I would die. So Dean Garrison was very polite. He listened for about a minute and he said, "Mr. Bass, sir, would you mind stepping out into the hall and I'll talk to Judi for a minute?" So it was quite an experience. More than a superb theatrical artist and educator, Dean Garrison led the school for 17 years and remained on 9 more years to teach, act, and run UCI's music theater program in New York. So today, we salute you, Dean Garrison. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker. Who better to talk about Eugene Loring than the artistic executor of the Eugene Loring estate, Patrice Whiteside Norris, who is no stranger to UCI. Patrice.
Thank you, Judi. I graduated from UCI with a BA in dance in 1975. I danced with the Oakland Ballet before moving on to earn my master's in dance from Ohio State University. And from that point, I became the founding director of the Dance Medicine Division of the Center for Sports Medicine at St. Francis Memorial Hospital in San Francisco. After starting a family, I found myself back in school, earning a teaching credential, and for the last 20 years, I have been a 4th grade teacher, which brings me to a story about Mr. Loring when I was in the 4th grade. I was a very nervous 4th grader who was very excited that my ballet teacher had invited me to take a master class with Mr. Loring at my small dance studio in Northern California. A class was filled with more advanced students, and I was trying desperately not to be noticed. So I thought I'd found a nice back corner to hide in during the center work. But as we were doing the adagio, Mr. Loring eyed me, walked over to me, and gently held my hand, and in a very audible voice, in an understated voice, and looking over his glasses like he used to, right, he said, "Very nice." Well, I was hooked from that point on. Little did I know that that moment of a brief connection between us, that I would eventually become the artistic executor of Mr. Loring's estate. In my eyes, then and now, he was a larger-than-life figure in the world of dance. Eugene Loring was a talented dancer and pioneering choreographer who fused many dance styles together in the creation of a distinctly American movement idiom. His most famous work, Billy the Kid, epitomized this idiom and demonstrated his choreographic genius. This work has been staged on numerous companies throughout the United States, as well as Europe and Australia. Mr. Loring continued to choreograph countless works throughout his lifetime for his dance companies, for other companies, for Broadway and Hollywood, as well as for UCI, and was working on choreographing a new work for Oakland Ballet right up until his death in 1982. Mr. Loring was also a pioneer in the world of dance education. He established the American School of Dance in Hollywood in 1948, where many students, professional dancers, and show business personalities trained. There he developed and codified a dance technique he called freestyle. In freestyle classes, he structured the technique so that it was adaptable to many dance styles, hence creating a more versatile dancer. Being very analytical and academic in his work, he also developed his own dance notation system called kinesiography. I'm sure many of you can remember being in either freestyle classes or kinesiography classes during your time at UCI. He pioneered an area of university education that was not taken too seriously at that time by many academicians. And just look at what a legacy he has left. Look at how the dance department has grown throughout the years. And just look at what a legacy he has left throughout those years. Look at all of you, and look at the wonderful things you all have accomplished with your UCI dance experience as a springboard. I know how proud Mr. Loring was of his students who trained at UCI, although, as you know, compliments were indeed rare from him. In closing, I'd like to quote the late Ron Judi, who was the director of the Oakland Ballet Company during Loring's tenure with the company. Gene was not an easy man. He spoke, moved, and choreographed economically. His life was committed to art. His training of dancers reflected that commitment. He was a diminutive man, but who really was indeed larger than life. Our next speaker is the lovely Diane Diefendorfer, who will speak about the wonderful Professor Penrod. Diane?
Hello, everyone. This is a real pleasure to be here. I see so many familiar faces, and some that I don't know yet. First, I guess I need to say who I am, in case you don't know. I'm Diane Diefendorfer. I'm currently Associate Professor of Teaching here for our dance department. I teach all levels of ballet. I teach repertory, and I also conduct the Pilates program for our dance majors. And I'm the undergraduate advisor. So prior to beginning my work at UC Irvine, I was a dancer with the Frankfurt Ballet in Germany, the Iglevsky Ballet in New York, and I was a member of the original Los Angeles Ballet. And I also opened the first Pilates studio in Orange County in 1987. That's another story, but that's enough about me. The invitation to speak about Mr. Penrod is an absolute true honor for me, for I would not be here today at all if it weren't for him, and also for Dr. P. So, yeah, you're to be honored too. My memory is of 34 years ago, which the number right there just kind of shocks me to say that. 34 years ago, Mr. Penrod was chair of the department, and he and Dr. Plastino came to the Jimmy DeFord Dance Center to watch me teach a ballet class. I didn't really know what this was all about, but I remember distinctly the two of them sat at the front of the studio on the floor, just like dancers, with their legs crossed, backs against the mirror, and they watched the whole class. And afterward, they offered me a job. So I thought, oh, okay. I didn't really know what I was getting into because I had had no real experience with the university dance program, especially one such as UC Irvine. But Jim, and by the way, I often called him Jim, and I recently heard that he preferred James. And I didn't know that, and he never said anything about it. So I called him Mr. Penrod for a while, and then I called him Jim. And he, of course, if you know him, he was so gracious and kind and lovable that he never said, please call me James. Anyway, he was so very encouraging and enthusiastic to me as a new teacher here at the school. I felt welcomed and respected and appreciated, and this never changed the entire time that he was the chair. I came into the department as a part-time lecturer. We were called Unit 18s at the time. And you know, I didn't really know exactly what that meant either, but I just knew that I showed up for my classes and I taught. He always treated me with such respect and admiration and kindness, and it just meant a lot to me. I have many, many fond memories of conversations that we had. I would see him in the hallway, I'd see him in the office, I would see him at events at school. I'd often see him and Rita at the intermissions at the Performing Arts Center. We loved to talk about dancers that we admired, past and present. He and I talked about choreography that we liked, that we didn't like. He always asked my opinion about everything, and especially ballet related. His knowledge of dance, history, dancers was immense. I learned so much from him in conversation, but he was always humble and always anxious to listen to other ideas. James was everywhere, all the time. It was not at all unusual to see him observing classes, watching rehearsals, and frequently attending final exams throughout the department. He was thoroughly invested in the goings-on of the entire department. He just simply loved dance. I rarely witnessed him in a bad mood. He was cheerful and often very funny. He enjoyed a good laugh, and I can still remember that twinkle he had in his eye, always enjoying a good conversation. He always also wanted to know how my life was outside of school, asking me about my family, my husband, our daughter. In 1989, with the support also of Dr. Plastino, Jim had such a vision for the future. He approved the addition of Pilates classes to our dance major curriculum. So UCI became at that time one of the very few university dance programs to offer Pilates. Thank you. Okay, we were the first. I know I'm right.
We're Fred.
Jan. So I was supported in creating the program, and I think that that was a significant step forward in dance wellness and dance education that we still enjoy today. So I'm delighted with that he had the foresight to do that. To conclude, James Penrod was a man of vision and integrity. His passion and love for the UC Irvine dance program is the legacy by which he will be remembered. And it's my pleasure now to introduce Betsy Rowe, who will speak about older men.
I was told to make my introduction 30 seconds and Olga's 2 minutes. You try and do Olga Maynard in 2 minutes, and it's pretty overwhelming. And sitting there and listening to all these stories, I'm just overwhelmed with memories. So if I digress, just wave at me and tell me to. My name is Betsy Rowe. I was one of the early ones too. Judi and I were classmates. I came in 1966 to 1968. And then Lori was pretty hard on me, so I left to dance with a professional Hartford Ballet Company, and then subsequently got my master's in dance from UCLA. And I came to San Diego. I founded a dance company that I co-directed for 15 years. And then after that, toured a solo repertory of national and international choreographers for the next decade. I've been an adjunct on 6 Southern California campuses and had the privilege here of having Lauren invite me back because his bad student made good. So I was I was a lecturer here between 1975 and 1992, which was a tremendous privilege. And during those years, the early years, I would bring my baby daughter, Sadie, who crawled on the floor under my feet as I taught. She received her master's in dance here much later and has her own professional company in San Diego. And it is a great joy and privilege that she and I, as mother and daughter, share the legacy and the experience of our beloved teachers like Jimmy, for me, Jim, who I knew really very well and close, Elle as well, and Donnie, we called him Donnie at the time, Donnie and Gail, beloved teachers. So it's with great pleasure that I introduce the remarkable Olga Maynard, a beloved professor. Many of you had her. When I came, when I left, she had just arrived in 1969, although our paths crossed when I was teaching. She was active internationally as a dance historian and an amazing liberal arts educator. She had a remarkable career, as you all probably know, as a researcher, a writer, a critic, a jurist on panels, an educator, and a consultant. She published hundreds of articles reviewing most of the leading figures in the dance world, as well as the institutions of dance during this dance boom that we had from the 1960s through the 1980s. She was pivotal in writing articles about those people. She published a dozen books, books on ballet, on modern dance, on opera, on the integration of performing arts into higher education. And if you didn't know, she also wrote on Eugene Loring. If you go to her American Ballet book, there's a section on Loring from her. We consider Olga sort of like the ideal catalytic agent between what's happening on stage, the performance piece, and the viewer or the reader, helping integrate those two, what's seen and what's experienced. She wrote well about that. Well, we all know about this visionary department. It was amazing. And Loring's visionary focus for this department, which was to bring working artists as the faculty, was a real perfect fit for Olga's skills. That within this department, her ideas about humanities education could be made in an institutional setting while still continuing to have contact with practicing artists, which was her greatest love. It was here that she helped develop most of the graduate studies, particularly in the undergraduate classes. She taught both in both levels, as you all know, maybe dance history, dance aesthetics, elements of performance, courses in criticism, and her favorites, research and bibliography, for those of you who remember. She continued her duties here as a full professor until she retired in 1989. Olga's publications are characterized by precision. If you've read her work, she fact-checked everything from the dates and the names and the events and the details of events. And in doing so, I really think she created a permanent value for dance events and dancers' careers in writing for the trajectory of dance history as we have known it. To this day, her writings, really to me, not only help maintain and inform us, the dance community, we can go to those to fact check and find out and use them as our teaching tools, but they're also research pieces for the general audience that supports arts in this culture. In closing, I like to remind us that all periods and styles of regional dance are embraced by her famous quote. Well, I'll probably start crying. Dance is a serious and honorable and noble profession.
Hello, my name is Melanie. Hey, Rosa. For a bio, I'm just going to do news really short. I started performing at the Laguna Beach Playhouse when I was a little kid. That kind of sparked my interest in the performing arts. But it wasn't until I moved to Puerto Rico in high school for 2.5 years that I became well-versed in the origins and elements of Puerto Rican and Caribbean music and dance. Then I came back to Southern California, graduated from Laguna Beach High School, and I entered UC Irvine where Dr. Plastino and Mr. Penrod got their hands on me. And that was it after that, because I was a bio-sci major at that time, and Dr. Plastino said, no, you're not going to be able to sit in a lab all day long. She had seen me move before, so she was like, no, that's not going to work. So I feel like I am a product of UCI, because I have gotten most of my Western dance training here at this school. I had such notable dancers, professors, scholars as Olga Maynard, Dr. Janice Plastino, James Penrod, Donald McHale, Joanna, L. Gabriel, Jim Jones, Larry Rosenberg, Donald Bradburn, David Allen, Barbara Plunk, Mary Corey, Lisa Noggle, and Nancy Roder. And I'm grateful to all of these dance educators and others who continually fueled my love and passion for dance. And I am here today because of all of them. They live within me. I'm presently the chair of Fullerton College Dance Department and the artistic director, and I just love being there, and if it wasn't for those that came before, I would not be where I am. So I'm supposed to talk about L. Gabriel, and later on I'm supposed to talk about Donald McHale. You all know their bios, right? So I'm just going to talk about memories, things that they meant to us. And I actually reached out to a few of my fellow classmates and people that I knew from before. So I met L. Gabriel in the early 1980s. He was one of my first ballet teachers at UCI, along with Joanna, Barbara Plunk, Larry Rosenberg, Jim Jones. L. Gabriel was a sassy, beautiful, and proud ballet teacher. You all know that, right? He was known for his humor, warmth, and kindness towards everyone. I talked to Erin Landry, and I said, I asked her, what are the top three things off of your mind about L. Gabriel? She says he would say, this is fantastic. His smile, the African necklace he gave me, ginger candy, and he would share his ginger candies with students every now and then. And then she said, and how he was my biggest fan. And I went, huh. I said, funny. He made me feel that way too. I'm sure he made many other of his students feel that they were just as important, right? But I was the most important. Anyways, Shanti Harder Johnson. I said, what do you remember? And she says, being loud in a good way. Kikika! Kikika! Suck in your poo-poo! Edward Johnson. He made me become a dance major. After my first class with him, he insisted that I continue to take dance classes to the point of telling me which classes that I had to take each semester. And then he goes, suddenly I was a dance major. He was a double major, actually. That's Edward. Jeff Hendricks, he says he remembers his huge smile, high-pitched voice, encouraging his students. And this last memory is a memory that I remember too, and I'm sure other students remember. He would walk around the ballet studio and he would go, is this ballet zero? And then I'll never forget, there was times when we'd have exams and all the kids would be really, freaked out because, you have like 2 or 3 ballet teachers during the semester, the quarter system, but then all of a sudden you have an exam and there's 10 people up in front, right? It's like, oh my God, they're gonna think I'm horrible. So he would say, if you can't dance, put flower in hair. Wear makeup, put beautiful clothes on. No one look at feet. That was our beautiful Al Gabriel. So we all know that, right? I know every one of you had heard stuff like this. Okay, then in the early 1980s, I was in class with him one time, and mind you, he would all of a sudden felt like he had to say something as we're all at the bar, no one can stop. You're in the middle of your exercises, right? We all know that, and you cannot stop. So one day this girl, foolish girl, she said, oh, Gabriel, my boyfriend's here today. Can I have him come and watch class? Oh, sure. Bar exercises. Whatever we're doing, right? And then he walks close to the guy and he goes, are you rich? Boyfriend, what? Are you rich? Are you rich? And the boyfriend's like, oh my God, he didn't know what to do. So he turns over to the girl and he goes, is he rich? And the girl is petrified. Like I said, we cannot miss a beat, right? She has this petrified look on her face. He turns back to the guy and he goes, are you rich? Are you rich? And the guy goes, I'm just a student. And he turns back and he goes, oh, no. He no rich, no good. You dancer. You need a rich husband. That was our love Gabriel. And I have to say that no one ever brought a girlfriend or a boyfriend to class after that. It's my pleasure to introduce Toni Petruzzo, who will be speaking about Don Bradburn. Thank you.
You forgot one thing about him. 6 o'clock. What wonderful memories, aren't they? And coming on the campus too. I don't have any memories because the only thing that was here were a couple of buildings and dirt roads back in '76 when I graduated. But when I was attending UCI, I was known as Antoinette Yuskis. Okay, so I got rid of that and I'm now Toni Petruzzo because it's a lot easier than I'm using my married name. But I was only there at UCI for a year and a half. Prior to that, I was a pre-med student at UC San Diego for 3.5 years, and I decided I don't need to do that because I was dancing with the local ballet companies. I was a soloist with the San Diego Ballet Company and also with the California Ballet Company. I was one of the first members of the California Ballet Company when it started back eons ago when we did our first production of Coppelia. And I also studied at the School of American Ballet in New York, which is the feeder school to the New York City Ballet. But while I attended UCI, I remember attending those classes with El Gabriel, Roy Fitzell, Barbara Plunk, the killer classes from Sally Whalen, Jack Coughlin. Do you remember that peacock? And how he would prance around in the classroom and try to show you what to do, and oh my goodness. Wonderful Olga Maynard and her history. Mr. Loring and embarrassing you in front of the entire class because you were trained in Russian style as opposed to what he wanted. That was very embarrassing, but I learned a lot from him. Janice Plastino. Yes, I took a few classes from you. And Mr. Penrod. Victoria Barrett, you were my very first jazz teacher. Woo! And of course, I can't resist saying Mr. Anthony Tudor. And I had the opportunity of dancing in his ballets while I was attending UCI, and they were absolutely lovely. The classes were so full of knowledge, enrichment, and awe to see all of these people there teaching you. So at night, I would travel up to LA and take classes from various choreographers and dancers, and I wanted to work in LA. So after graduation, I moved to LA, and my first job was doing a TV series with Nancy Walker called Blansky's Beauties. It was on ABC, and it lasted 52 weeks, and it was fun. It was through the people that did Laverne and Shirley and Happy Days, which led to a few spots on Happy Days, where I was able to dance with Fonzie and be his girlfriend. I was a dream of Scott Baio's, where I was a showgirl, and did Barry Manilow specials, Academy Awards, Emmys. I had a stint with Denny Terrio on Dance Fever, where Diane Day and I were his cohorts named Motion. I was on that for a couple of years. And did a remake of Lapin, where I wound up being in the party scene and doing Goldie Hawn bikini shots, where
They paint all these figures on your body, and then they do trick photography to make it look like somebody's digging into your navel, and you're still dancing and doing all this stuff. A whole day of body painting for 5 minutes of filming, you know? Also did Motown 25. And Motown 25 was an incredible show. That's the one that Michael Jackson wound up doing the moonwalk for the first time on national television. And a couple of movies, Annie, Mel Brooks' To Be or Not to Be, and Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, which was a flop of a movie, but it was certainly a lot of fun. The choreographers that I worked with, Lester Wilson, Vincent Patterson, Michael Peters, Michael Kidd, Dee Dee Wood, Kevin Carlisle, Toni Sharmley, Alan Johnson, Anita Mann, Rob Iscoff, Michael Peters, and many others. Also, opportunity to work with John Travolta, Patrick Swayze, Debbie Reynolds, Sammy Davis Jr. We were in his opening act as Motion when we were doing Dance Fever. Juliet Prowse, incredible. Dick Van Dyke, Debbie Allen, and Shirley MacLaine in her one-woman show on Broadway. I had a wonderful experience as a dancer, and my education at UCI had a tremendous influence on that career. But now I would like to reflect on Donald Bradburn, renowned dance photographer, dancer, designer, and choreographer. He was born in a rural town in Lindsay, California. He was only 15 years old when he first captured the images with a simple 35mm camera of the Ballet Russe de Monte Carlo in a one-night-only performance in Fresno. He moved to LA to study ballet under Eugene Loring at his American School of Dance while majoring in theater and design at UCLA. He went on to become the artistic director of the Fresno Ballet and co-founder and artistic director of California Ballet Theater. He was also a beloved teacher and choreographer of dance history here at UCI and also at CalArts. And in 1993, he was invited to Russia to help found the first university dance program in the Soviet Union. As a dancer, he appeared in more than 40 musicals for national, stock, and civic light opera companies. In acting and dancing roles, he was in such films as Hello, Dolly, Sweet Charity, and Funny Girl. On TV, he danced with Fred Astaire, Goldie Hawn, and Diana Ross. He directed and choreographed concerts, operas, films, television, and he was also the choreographer for Bobby Gentry in her nightclub act. You remember her. She was the one that had the song where she threw something off. Billy Joe McAllister threw something off the Tallahatchie Bridge. Well, he did her nightclub act. He became known for his celebrity headshots as well, and portraits, and costume designs. He was a frequent contributor to Dance Magazine. He had been researching and writing a new book on his mentor, Eugene Loring, entitled Beyond Billy the Kid, a dance biography of Eugene Loring when he passed. But I first met Don when he performed with the San Diego Ballet in the full-length version of Romeo and Juliet. Joanna was Juliet, Thor Satowski was Romeo. Don performed the role of Benvolio. He also traveled with us and the San Diego Ballet when we performed in the south of France. We were in residence at the Centre de Danse International with Rosella Hightower. And we took lots of classes from them and from Rosella, and he submitted lots of his photographs to Dance Magazine while we were on tour. He was an incredible person, an artist and a human being, and we honor you, and we honor your contributions, Don, to the dance world and to the legacy of UCI. You are certainly being missed right now. And thank you for honoring Donald Bradburn, and now I would like to introduce Laird Rodet, who will speak about Life itself. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Laird. I grew up not far from here. I was born in Hoag Hospital and still there. went to Harborview School and Mariner School and Presidio School and Costa Mesa High School and Orange Coast College, and then made it here. Perfect transition to another university. And by the way, Judi, I was here for the commemoration ceremony in 1964, age 12.
Oh, wow.
So I beat you. Because I saw,
They're doing the math, they're doing the math on both of us.
I saw Lyndon B. Johnson here, who was digging the earth for the campus. At that time, I lived in Baycrest, which was one of the first tract houses or homes across the bay, what was called the Back Bay. So we would watch the bulldozers and the tractors, and I came here in 1972, and it was during the filming of The Return of the Planet of the Apes on the administration building. So that kind of dates me, but it gives you an idea of me. I'm an Orange County person. My dad was born in Los Angeles, so this brings me kind of to Roy Fitzell. Leroy Waldo Fitzell Jr. He was born in San Diego and went to high school in Los Angeles. There is a lot about him online. I mean, it's such fascinating things to go through Google and see what you come up with, whether it's YouTube's or, all kinds of biographical material. But what an interesting person. I can't say that I had a lot of classes from him. I was an English major here, by the way, but I had more units in dance than I had in my major. I was in every senior thesis, every master's thesis. I was in Jan's PhD project. And where I met Roy was actually not in the studio taking class, but in Kiss Me Kate. Eugene Loring was so desperate to get a man that he wrangled a non-major like me and basically put me on the stage and said, rehearse this, learn this. And I was doing my senior comprehensive examinations. I told him I could not spend the time to rehearse and devote to what it would mean to recreate this beautiful production. So Roy, how great a person he was the dancer in front of me. Then there was Jim Penrod, and there was Clinton Rothwell, and John Bradburn. So they had the front row of performers, and I got to be in the back and basically just watch their movement and try to replicate as much as I could, because I just really couldn't get Mr. Loring's timing and his rhythms. They were so complex. I think it was like a tarantella from Kiss Me Kate, and it was quite complex. And thank goodness I had a wonderful partner, Cynthia McRoberts, who was also a student here. But Roy was so important to me as a growing young person. I mean, I was 20, he was 43 in 1972. He would be 93 now. He was 87 when he passed away, living in southern Utah, Santa Clara, where my brother now lives. So we have all of these little things that twined us together. And I remember backstage trying to figure out who I wanted to be at graduation, what I was going to do, where I was going to go to school, if I was going to go to school. Would I try to get married? Would I try to have a family? Would I try to seek another profession altogether? Would I begin a career as a writer or a filmmaker and pursue my English background in writing? I really had no clue, and most 20-year-olds really don't. So anyway, he would just calmly be backstage or downstairs in the dressing room with us, and just, he knew I was really struggling, because I was struggling to be the dancer, and I was struggling to be the English student, and knew that I had a whole future ahead. And he'd just say, keep it simple, it will come to you, things will fall into place, and you will find a path. Even though the roads diverged in a yellow wood, and it wasn't just one road or another road, there seemed to be 50, and I really didn't know what to do. So he was that sort of foundation he had the experience. He was as old as 2 of my lifetimes. And he had been through so many transitions in his life, going from Hollywood to universities to an educator to a family person and more of a missionary. He spent years in Uruguay and also in Spain, which is really interesting because he was cast as Paco in 1953 at the Metropolitan Opera in a ballet by Eugene Loring called Capital of the World. And his flair for understanding traditional dance and dance from all cultures was pretty amazing, and he was able to interpret that through his body. I think Jan would say, yes, logically, he was a perfect dancer. I mean, this image of him on the wall, I mean, I think he's in his 60s. You should see the pictures of him when in his 20s and 30s and 40s. Just an amazing looking performer with a body to die for. Everyone just wanted that musculature, that perfect proportion, and he knew he had it, but it was so modest and so unassuming and so caring, and basically such a nurturer and mentor. I was able to actually see him briefly in 1992 when I was the CEO of Oakland Ballet, and Patrice came with him to the Oakland Ballet in a kind of a research and development phase of the project to recreate Capital of the World. And Roy was there because he was going to teach the role of Paco. I'm not sure who would have taken the role that Lupe Serrano had in the original production, but it was so difficult for the dancers to understand the nuances, the combination of matador, flamenco, modern, ballet. There were so many genres that he brought together within his own person and personality. But he was a man that was a true gentleman, and he has 4 children that are alive and well, and his wife, I believe, still lives in Santa Clara. But when I was just researching what I would say, I kept seeing the threads, and the whoop and the wharf, so to speak, of the lives that came together and that were sort of put together through his careful mentorship. And he performed with Drosselmeyer until I think he was 87 or 85 in the companies that were in southern Utah, Dixie State, and I think Southern Utah State University. And he taught, and there are videos of him in the studio in his 80s teaching, being as nimble and as graceful and as helpful and as nurturing as I remember him in 1972. So I just wanted to share some of those anecdotal memories with you. I have so many more, but I know there's not time, and I would like to hand the microphone or the podium back to Melanie, who is going to speak to us about Donald Hale.
Thank you. Hello again. All right, I'm here with some more memories. Alvin Rangel Alvarado, he danced with the Dayton Contemporary Dance Company for 8 years, and he did Donald's Rainbow Round My Shoulder. He's one of my best friends now. He's the chair of the dance department at Cal State Fullerton. He said that he remembers Donald, his musicality, rigor, and his heart. We all remember those things about him. Shanti Harder Johnson, she said he sang everything. He would just sing everything. She also said that he was very stern. He wanted what he wanted, but you also knew that he had a heart. He was very caring and loving. There was a lovable side to him, and he was a wonderful storyteller. And he told many, many stories. I'm sure many of you heard the stories. Aaron Landry remembered his singing, his smiling face. And here we go. Ready? Wait for it. Hot beans and butter! Come and get your supper! Jeff Hendricks, he was always singing. He would sing in class and would sing, his little combinations and whatnot. Jeff Hendricks remembers his big smile, support for students. And he also remembers him as an iconic choreographer representing the African American experience. I met Donald McHale as a returning student in 1995. He was giving a talk in a dance history class. I think it was Mary's Corey's class, if I'm not mistaken. And he was talking about doing the work with this man that composed all of Harry Belafonte's music. And of course I did. And he said, yes. And I said, are you talking about Irving Bergey? And he goes, yes. He was wondering how I knew that as a student. So after class, he pulled me aside and he goes, well, what do you know about Irving Bergey and how did you meet him? So that's how we bonded. That's how our first connection was about someone else. So although I was his student, our connection was born right then and there. And for the next 4 years that I worked under his study, he was a kind and humble, giving mentor. He loved his storytelling. We all know that he was a living legend, right? He was in history books, but he was still living. He was in New York City one time, and he loved giving this talk, and he loved giving this memory, and it was just so fun for him. He said he just gave a talk in New York City, and I guess there was a bunch of young kids, and he got into the elevator, and this one kid just kept hitting him up. He goes, Mr. McHale, Mr. McHale. So he finally looks down at this kid, and he goes, what? He goes, Mr. McHale, I read about you in books. I thought you was dead. And Mr. McHale said no, he was so tickled by that because, he was a living legend. He was like, no, I'm well alive, but it's so neat for him to tell those kind of stories. When Donald McHale was choreographing Sweet Charity, he was the director and the choreographer. I, at that time, was in a musical. I was a single parent at that time. And so he was so kind and gracious. He knew that I had to take my son to rehearsals. He would have my son sit with him every rehearsal, sit next to Donald. So my son, as a young kid, he was, I don't know, in elementary school, he was able to watch Donald McHale direct and choreograph, which was very special for him. And so then yesterday I had lunch with my son and my mother, and he said, there's another vivid childhood memory I have of sitting next to Donald McHale when we were watching A Midsummer's Night Dream. He said, I just don't know, because that's another memory I have of him. So my son knew him as a kind, gentle spirit. One day he was at school, and a new student arrived. And during the introduction, the kid said, I'm here because my parent is coming to study with this famous man. My son came home, and he told me the story, and he said, it's so funny to me because the funny man was my friend, Mr. McHale. He was flabbergasted. This was Donald. He was so humble to everyone that he met. Young child, or elderly person, it did not matter. I'll never forget that Donald McHale, he knew my character and he knew my work ethic. So when he worked with you, he knew who you were as a person, which was very, very important to us. A graduate student, Kina John Smith, she was doing a graduate performance, her research on Harlem Renaissance. So Donald came to watch our rehearsal, and of course we all wanted everything to be perfect. So in this one section, there was a V, and I was at the point of the V. And we had to do this bot-on, we had to kick. And of course, you want to kick high, you want Donald to see your good side, right? This girl kept getting into my formation, so I had 2 or 3 talks with her. Side note, please, you need to get out of the way, because I can't do the movement that I'm supposed to do. Second time, did it again. Third time, she did it again. The 4th time, I kicked. Oops. Yeah, I kicked. Then I hear from the audience, Melanie, is there a problem? I quickly said, oh no, Mr. McHale, there is no problem. It's been solved. It was. The dancer never got into my spot again. And then another time, I just love this man. So I was performing in Sweet Charity, and I'd already known him for 4 years. So we all know that if Donald McHale didn't like something, he would let you know, especially if you were performing for him. So because it was a play that was happening on our campus, the grad acting students had to be in the show as well, right? They didn't understand dancers that much at that time. A few heads would go, oh no. So we're in the dressing room, and I had many grad acting students and other grad acting students tell me that they did not like what I was doing on stage because they thought I was stealing the focus. And every time we're in the dressing rehearsal, they kept telling me the same thing, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. I knew that you only listen to the director. You don't listen to anybody else. So what I did is I waited until, and I'm really obnoxious if you can't tell, I waited until Dr. McHale walked into the room, and I said in the loudest voice that I could, Mr. McHale, is there anything about my performance that you'd like me to change? He looked at me and he looked at everybody in the room and he says, you just keep doing what you're doing. Don't change a thing. And if you want to do more, do more. And I did like this. Thank you. And so after we had the brown bag, of course all the grad actors, came up to me later and they were like, oh my God, we're so sorry. We should have just gone with you. I'm like, oh my God, you guys need to study more. Okay, so then, Donald, once you were his friend, he just loved you forever, right? And he just made me feel so special. Every time I saw him, he would call me Melanie La Rosa after I left school. Didn't matter where he saw me, Melanie La Rosa. So I think it was 2007, they had ACDA here at UC Irvine. And so I was bringing about 17 students from my school, and we had all these rules. Like when we go to ACDA, we bond as a group, we all sit together, this is what we do, we talk about the performance. So I walk into the Barclay Theater, and I see Donald, he's like, Melanie La Rosa! So of course we start talking, and then he says, let's sit down. And we sat down. Then I see my students sitting rows ahead of us, and they're looking around and wondering why I'm not sitting with them, right? So afterwards they say to me, how come you didn't sit with us? I mean, we're all supposed to sit together. Like, you were up there with Donald and all those people. Well, they didn't call him Donald. They didn't know really who he was. They're like, Mr. McHale, right? And I said, I just want you to know one thing. When Mr. McHale says, let's sit down, he meant that he wanted me to sit next to him, and he didn't care where my students were sitting. So there you have it. Those are our memories. Very special man. If I was going to read his bio, it would have taken me 25 years. So I just wanted to give you a few memories that we have with him and everyone else. And Dr. P, I'm not supposed to talk about you, but I have so much to say about you. But I'm not supposed to do it now, but we know. All right. Thank you. And it's my greatest pleasure to introduce Laird Rodet again.
I'm opening the next section of today's honors. These are the Reunion 2022 honorees, and I have the distinct pleasure of introducing someone that you probably all know already. And if you don't, here's a little bit of information. This person will receive the 2022 Outstanding Alumni Award, and you will find that she is sitting very close to most of you, front and center, Margaret Cobb Marshall.
Yay.
And again, it's really difficult to try to condense so much into so little time and do it gracefully and appropriately. But I will try my best to give you a little bit of information about Margaret and why she is so deserving of this. There are so many people in this room and elsewhere who are not with us that could be included in this category. But we will save those individuals for the future, and hopefully this was one of many that will happen as we proceed through the decade. But Margaret received her MFA from UCI here in 1973, so she and I are actually kind of in the same class together. I graduated in 73 as well. She is Professor Emeritus of Dance at the University of California, San Diego, where she headed the dance program at UC San Diego, if you can believe it, for over a 30-year span. An incredible 30-year span, 75 to 97, 2000 to 2002, and 2004 to 2005. And there, she was really the moving force behind the creation of the Wagner Dance Building, and also authored both the dance major and minor degrees. Now that's very, very significant on an academic campus, to claim that as something that you have accomplished, and that is in fact. It's an amazing accomplishment. She trained in the areas of dance, all areas, with Anthony Tudor, Eugene Loring, Bella Lewitsky, Laura Lubovitch, Joe Tremaine, and many, many more, and has performed and choreographed internationally, nationally, statewide. She has done so much service. She was on the she was the National Dance Chair for the National Dance Society of Arts and Letters from 88 to 90. She was the artistic director of the San Diego Dance Institute, where she supervised 30 teaching artists during her time there, which is no small feat. On the California Department of Education's Visual and Performing Arts Curriculum Framework, she was on the Criteria Committee. She also, from the Office of the President, as the Director of the UC and CSU Visual and Performing Arts statewide entrance requirements. So these are just amazing things, because it's so much work that is not in the studio, it's actually an administrative job. And that's the miracle, I think, of Margaret, is that she was able to fold all of that artistry into her academic ability as an administrator and a role model. She, it continues here, she was the vice chair of the UC Board of Admissions and Relations with Schools. And she's received numerous grants and awards for her artistic and community work. Since retiring, she created the Margaret Marshall Endowment that annually supports UCSD's undergraduate dance performances. That's a great legacy in and of itself. Margaret has also been a supporter of the Dance Legacy Project's efforts here at UC Irvine to keep the legacy of UCI dance alive and well and thriving. So we certainly thank you, and it is my pleasure, appreciation, and recognition for exemplifying and perpetuating the UCI dance legacy at UCSD. We have a certificate for you, Margaret, if you'd like to come up. And her family's here with her too, which is also very special. But,
Thank you very much.
and now I'm going to introduce Maha Afra, who is going to present the next honor.
Whoops. Here we go. First movement. Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm going to tell you, I'm a great student. I timed my damn thing. I practiced so hard, but forget about it. So, my name is Maha Afra, and I am humbled to have even been in this program at UC Irvine, to have studied with all these amazing human beings. I'm going to tell you, I'm the immigrant who had no idea there was actually a degree in dance, that actually dance existed in the realm of colleges and universities. So I found out that that existed while I was in a ballet class, in a studio, because I thought the universe revolved around ballet. So naively, the Yellow Pages. Yeah, it was the time of the Yellow Pages. UC Irvine Dance Department, and I called the department, I want to come and be a dance major. I don't know, I think probably June or Karen answered the phone, and then like, what do we do with this one? I don't know who answered the phone. So I go to UCI, and I think they sent me to Mary Corey at that point. They didn't know what to do with me. Somebody with dance background, but then had all science degrees. They're like, okay, come audition. So naively, I'm auditioning. I don't know for what. Honestly, I had no idea. And what I see is the kind face of Janice Plastino. I'll never forget, ever. Looking at me and like short of clapping for me, saying like, keep going. So then they decided, okay, you have nothing on your transcript that's dance from anywhere. I mean, you've danced, but you don't have anything. You have to go back to undergrad. So 1996, I'm an undergrad here with 3 kids. I was already older. I'm not gonna tell you how old, okay? Don't ask that question. So 1996, I'm with all these younger, much younger kids. And then 1999, I become a grad student, again, studying with all these amazing human beings. And currently, I am at Cypress College. I am the chair of the dance department, and I went after that to find my dance company, and it's a non-profit organization. I mean, I can't believe it. I'm still like in disbelief that as an immigrant, because of this and the professors, and because of June and Karen, I was able to be who I am at this day, doing what I love, what I think is a gift from the sacred to change lives. So, and then thank you, Judi, thank you, Rita, where's Rita? Thank you for choosing me to introduce Mrs. Barbara Bailey Plum. Like, whoa, I am introducing a founding member of this program. Again, I had her when I was an undergrad, meaning I did not have access to of my classmates. I mean, my classmates were looking at me, who is this weird person with an accent? Of course, I have to say, Elle freaked the hell out of me. He enjoyed torturing me. And between his accent and my accent, good luck on that. But then I have to as ADHD, I'm going from one place to another. So I have to say, after graduating, he used to come see my concerts as an adjunct faculty. He used to come to my concerts, like, what the heck? Who does that? So, thank you. Anyway, back to Mrs. Plum. My memories of her is in teaching of dance as an undergrad. She was just the kind person who wanted us to count music. And she would just stand every piece of music in the class. She would count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 3, 2. And we had to clap it and say the 2 and the 3 and the 4. And guess what? I have become Mrs. Plum in the classroom. It's like, oh my God, I'm Mrs. Plum now. My other memory of her, and I have no idea what class that is. If anybody remember, if anybody took a class with her, where she used to look at our feet for point shoes, so we know what class Holly is going. Yeah. What class was that? Do you remember? Was it the teaching of that? Yes, something. She had something, and this machine, and yeah. So.
There's a picture of her.
Thank you. So she looks at my feet and she looks at my foot, and I was so scared. And she goes, "This is a functional and practical foot." And that was it. I just asked June, what do you remember of Mrs. Blunt? And June said that she remembers her as bonding with her students, wanted to bond so badly with her students, and she was always happy, like in this belief that she had that job. And then Holly also said that, yeah, what she did too, Mrs. Blunt, is that she guided, correct me if I'm saying it wrong, and she guided the students, each student, to where they should go next, to the next path. But every time I think of her, I think of this kind, down-to-earth person who made us all comfortable, who made us all happy. She was so even-tempered. This is my memory of her. And the certificate will be accepted by her daughter, Marty. Marty, I'm supposed to read this script. Hold on. Marty, I present to you this certification in appreciation and recognition of her outstanding dedication to UCI dance and championing dance legacies through education and artistic excellence.
Thank you very much. I'm Marty Pluckbuster. Obviously, I'm the very proud daughter of Barbara Bailey Plunk, and she really wished she could have been here today, but she just didn't feel like she's got the stamina at this point. She's 97, and she's doing great. And I appreciate being invited to speak on her behalf, because I could talk about her forever. So I won't do that to you. I've minimized it, but Mom started dancing when she was 9. She began her professional career at 17 years old working with the LA Civic Light Opera. She first met Eugene Loring when he was hired to choreograph the Louisiana Purchase for the Civic Light Opera. He had just opened the American School of Dance in Hollywood, and so she started taking classes with him. And she really found his approach to ballet and to dance in general to be quite different from the way that she had been trained. As was mentioned before, most of the ballet teachers at that time were Russian trained and had settled in Hollywood. And so she found him to have quite a different approach. And she had studied with him for a couple of years when he asked if she'd ever thought about teaching. And she said, to her great embarrassment, she blurted out, "Oh no, that's something you do when you're old." And she said she thought he'd never stop laughing at her. He was, late 40s maybe at the time. In any case, she started teaching after that, and he actually came and took the second class that she ever taught in her life. And she said, man, talk about scared. That was a terrifying prospect. But she said he was very gentle and very supportive, gave her the feedback that she needed to improve as a teacher. And she said she found that very rewarding. And I think anyone, and I've talked to several people already, who took a class from her knew that she took those lessons and took that attitude towards teaching to heart and shared it. And she continued to teach for him, worked on expanding his dance philosophy. He also became his dance assistant for several movie musicals back in their heyday. And then she stopped teaching and dancing when she married my dad and moved to San Bernardino in 1958, which is where she still is. So when the School of Fine Arts at UCI began, we've talked about Dean Garrison before. He wanted the dance and the drama departments to have faculty that had professional experience. And so he had been friends with Mr. Loring since his daughter had taken classes at the American School, and so he was very impressed with Eugene's philosophy that they should be knowledgeable in all areas related to dance, music, dance history, teaching, choreography, art, performance, obviously, and in drama. And So Mr. Loring asked Mom to come and teach when he came to start the dance department. And her agreement with my dad was that she had to be able to drop us off at school in the morning in San Bernardino and pick us up at, when we got out of class. So when we were finally in 1968, when we were both in school full-time, my brother and I, she would drop us off at 9 o'clock, make the 10:30 class, she'd teach a class at noon, and then she would come back home and make it by 3:30. Back in those days, in the early 60s, the traffic was not as bad on the 90 as it is now, so she was able to accomplish that just fine. I remember actually coming to classes with her when we would have holiday that she didn't have, and we Crawford Hall, and I remember sitting back in the little room, and I remember the clipboards that had all the list of whatever they were supposed to be teaching for, let's say, Ballet 1, and whoever was teaching the class would mark off the things they covered that day so that you knew, what you had going through. I'll never forget that. I also have a memory, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe in the very early days we did not have live accompaniment. And I remember, Mom doesn't remember this, but I remember her taking her classical records and recording them on a reel-to-reel with an open mic. And my brother and I would have to tiptoe around so we weren't making a lot of background noise so she could take her music and teach class with that music. She does not remember, but I would have gotten in trouble if I made noise, so I remember it very well. We talked about the fact that they taught in Crawford Hall when they had the basketball games, and Mom remembers that too. I remember a couple of times where they hadn't gotten stuff out of the way before class started, and there was lots of, I didn't know where I learned my first swear words actually, but anyway, we'd just scurry around and get things cleared up, and she remembers the basketball slamming up against the doors also, and I thought that might have added a little extra jeté. And they did the performances on that little stage, and they pull out the bleachers so people could watch the performances on the little stage. And there were no dedicated offices. At that time, they brought trailers in to serve as the dance offices. And one of the memories that Mom and I both have is that somebody startled a skunk that was living underneath the trailers. Do you remember that, Jan? And the smell was terrible. And so we had to kind of clear that out, evacuate until the smell cleared out. And she remembers very well the fact that there were cattle all over the place. Where the In-N-Out stand, the cows used to stick their little heads over the fence while everybody was coming in. But I would say that one of the things that Mom was the most proud of was defending the teaching of dance classes. Initially, when she started them, the university sort of fought against it because we're not a teaching school. If you want to learn to teach, you go to state college. And Mom stressed to them that teaching dance is not like teaching math, right? There's an element of danger, of risk to the dancer's health. And so you need to make sure that you're teaching dance properly, and instructors need to learn how to avoid, injuries on the part of their dancers. So, and I know our beautiful Janet Plastino fought with her on those things too. So she, in order to satisfy the powers that be, she had to write a justification, and I got to read this title because it's something else. Researching new methods of achieving results that will revert or lessen injury potential associated with dance. Mom said she didn't even know what that meant, but for those of us who have studied, I was also a student here in linguistics. For those of us who have studied here, you know that if you put research in the title, you're good to go. So she persevered as Mom was usually the case, and she prevailed, and the classes were allowed to continue. And I've already talked to many people in this room who benefited from those classes and went on to share that as well. So, and she remembers also as the department grew when they built the new classrooms, they developed new courses, but they would still have Crawford Hall. So she remembers going back and forth between classes. And she said she remembers one time passing El Gabriel in the parking lot. This is too much. But she said he always would smile and, just keep on going. He never ran out of energy. And we know that Eugene Loring's philosophy for this school was very successful because 4 or 5 years after that first year of dance, Graduates were teaching, developing dance programs and departments in almost every state and community college in Southern California and beyond. So I want to conclude with these words Mom gave me to tell you directly from her heart. She said, "I am so proud of all of our alumni who have been so successful in whatever they chose to do with their education. For me, the shocker is that some of you are retiring." Wow, where did the time go? I'm fortunate to be able to enjoy all of your activities through Facebook, so please keep posting. My life at UC Irvine was so rewarding during the 33 years I was there. I'm grateful to have been a small part of its development. Faculty, alums, students, you are all family to me. A big embracing hug and lots of love.
Is Rita, Marks, and Rod with Celeste Anusa.
You want to come up, Celeste? Well, Judi has ordered me to not be more than 30 seconds. So I'm going to be quick. Come here, Celeste. Well, it gives me a great pleasure to honor Lisa Nagel. I first got acquainted with Lisa at a conference in Hawaii, where we ended up talking for several hours, and that's been ever since. We just talk and talk. But I was impressed with her creativity and great spirit. Lisa is a woman of ideas and a catalyst for very stimulating conversations. She was department chair for 10 years and was always open to new ideas and wanted to honor the past as well as bring in new choreographic ideas and creative movement to the department. One of Lisa's students shared with me that he attributes his success to her supportive, empowering, and inclusive spirit. Lisa was a tremendous support to the UCI Dance Legacy documentary. She was our dance department advisor and allowed us to conduct over 20 hours of alumni and faculty interviews. Lisa played a vital role in facilitating this historical documentation of the UCI Dance Legacy. And by the way, you can purchase one of those soda. My grandson is over there in the corner waiting for your $20. And he's from Greece, and he is just about to become a teacher. Got a little bit off, but anyway, I had to put in a plug for my grandson. And so Lisa has always been giving us lots of encouragement and amazing ideas. And that is one of the reasons, amongst many, that we're honoring her today. Judi, was I 30 seconds? Anyway, one of Lisa's graduate students, Celeste Anusa, will share a few words about how Lisa has influenced and inspired her career. And her mother is with her. We were graduate students at UCLA together, Cynthia Morales. So it's, you know, the dance world is like that. We're all just kind of connected and related. But I'm going to do the right thing here. Oh my God, there's water down here. Somebody put some water here. So the Dance Legacy Project honors Lisa Nagel, Professor of Dance, Dance Legacy Special Advisor, in appreciation and recognition of her department, dedication and creative support of the Dance Legacy Project UCI Documentary 2022.
I'm incredibly honored to be here today sharing space with so many artists and educators that are forces and true believers in the impact of dance. I believe deeply in my heart that the proper way to honor someone like Lisa Nagel has been to direct a collaborative site-specific project that's including motion capture outdoors and collaboration with engineers and cross-disciplinary, bringing all of the individuals that she has really touched their hearts. But today I have been asked to speak for a couple of minutes, so I will do just that. Lisa. We called her Liza because she had this air that was grandeur with an aura of brilliance surrounding her presence. I was 21 when Lisa accepted me into the MFA program with a full scholarship. She took a chance on me as a young artist, just 8 months out of undergraduate studies. Lisa, I don't think you realize how much you impacted and influenced my life trajectory and abilities to acknowledge truth in my teaching and my creative process. I want to take this opportunity to thank you publicly for how you opened up my eyes to an unending potentialities as a dance artist, that this Latina child stutterer who was a woman deeply afraid of speaking publicly, and here I am. I had never known a female powerhouse dance leader that not only excelled in creative endeavors, but was also fearless in collaborations with scientists, engaged in TED Talks, and juggled many responsibilities while running a first-class university dance department, all with a sense of humor and humanity. One day, Lisa asked me to sub her improvisation class, and I felt incredibly honored to be in a position among my peers. Another occurrence, Lisa empowered me to rise to an occasion of direction was when she invited me to choreograph for her ensemble of dance students touring to Brigden, Spain. Thank you for making time in your busy schedule for numerous office meetings to connect, creating a safe place to express our authentic selves. Lisa Noggle is a force that has significantly transformed many. We, the community, are grateful for your mentorship, to staying inquisitive, asking questions, and to believe that anything is possible. Thank you and congratulations in receiving this acknowledgement of the tremendous work that you've accomplished and have yet to accomplish, the many lives that you've impacted, and the excitement of your future endeavors to come. Let's please give a huge round of applause to Professor Lisa Noggle.
I really don't know what to say. That was really wonderful to hear from you, Celeste. It's been so many years, so thank you so much. I want to start by thanking Rita and Judi for all your heart, soul, enthusiasm, and very obvious work that you have put into creating the Legacy Project, and for this very special day, this event for all of us to share together. Together, Rita and Judi, you are both providing an incredibly remarkable moment for all of us to share our stories, to make something memorable happen, and it's my privilege to be here. Thank you all. Thank you mostly. So I want to give my heartfelt appreciation for many faculty and talk a little bit from that side because I haven't been a student, but I do have another perspective to give, so I want to share a little bit, and I was only told 2 minutes, but I'll try to make it 2 minutes. So I want to start by giving my heartfelt appreciation to my colleagues and friends. The current chair of the dance department, Molly Lynch, for keeping the department so well connected through the pandemic, and for attending all the very small and large details that happen every single day in the dance department and often go unacknowledged. I also want to thank Alan Terracciano, who was the chair before me and is now the current associate dean. He's not here today, be able to be here today, but I'm sending appreciation to him also for managing all the small details of the entire School of the Arts for all of the students. And I think the appreciation to Molly and Alan is so important to me, especially because having been chair between these two people, I feel the continuation of leadership, and I understand how necessary it is to build a dance legacy. So giving them appreciation along with Judi and Rita reminds me also back before to Jim Penrod, to Jan Plastino, and all of the others who fulfilled the role through their extraordinary leadership as chair in the department. Thinking about long-time influence, I also must acknowledge my friend and colleague Diane Diefenderfer for her influential role in helping many undergraduate students fulfill their dreams and become successful. So we see these links between people, creating wider, deeper, longer, and increasingly vibrant field of dance. When Rita asked me to take some time and just say a few words, I decided to focus on the topic of mentoring, because mentoring is the core of everything that we do. There are so many people here to mention in this regard, those who are here today, all of you, and those who are not here. And so I remember a little bit back when I first arrived at UCI in the spring of 1998, 24 years ago. So actually this month. And I remember Karen Ricketts picking me up in this little pink Volkswagen car and her jumping out and saying, "We're gonna go here." And Karen's energy just struck me and pulled me in so immediately. And then I met June Siebert, and the two of them together I cannot say how much they embraced me and brought me into the department, taught me so much, and were leaders in mentoring as well. My approach to things at the time was primarily as a dancer. My orientation as a performer and improviser reflected my training in New York City, and I was very because I had been very influenced by Nurse Cunningham, Alan Nicolai, and other modern choreographer, dancers, teachers in ballet and jazz as well. I was also working on my PhD at NYU, and my interest in technology started to emerge. I was inspired by a video media artist, John Crawford, who later became central to my work and many life changes, including getting married. It was actually John Crawford and a former faculty member, Nancy Royer, whom I had met at a dance conference in 1998, who encouraged me to apply for the position at UCI. At my interview, I taught Modern 4, and I recall entering Dance Studio 128, which I'm sure many of you will remember, and there was Jim Penrod, Donald McHale, Jan Plastino, El Gabriel, Alan Terracciano, Barbara Plum, Don Bradford, the then chair Mary Corey, and several others, all sitting at this absolutely the longest table in the world. And they were going to watch me teach Modern 4. Yikes, I was definitely worried and nervous. But after the class, it was Jim Penrod, and followed by El Gabriel, who approached me with their reassuring smiles. And that really helped me through the rest of the audition process. And later I was hired. I mention this today because my admiration for them and all the faculty has grown tremendously since joining the department. My admiration is because I have seen and experienced the beautiful quality of their engagement with all things, not just dance or dancing, but it is the way they mentor each other and the students. There is no question in my mind that a dance legacy is directly related to mentors. People who generously invest themselves in helping others find their own deep meaning in the work
believe this is necessary because without mentors, we might not even have a network or a field of dance. My experience of mentoring is that it is something that shifts around and grows within us and changes because it's about transformation, caring, and letting go all at the same time. I think the UCI Dance Department is built from this at its very core, mentoring. One of the best ways that each of us can have a significant personal impact on our community, our nation, and the world for our future generations. So let's continue this conversation, and thank you all very much for listening.
Now I'd like to introduce Dana Schumacher, who will move us along to the final presentation today.
What a lovely transition you gave me, Lisa, because I am fortunate to be able to talk about my mentor. My name is Dana Starkey Schumacher. I'll do this. I can hold it. Okay. I'm also loud. I learned to teach in a studio. Not a problem. There we go. Thank you. Anyway, I finished my BA at UC Irvine in 1974 and MFA in 1976. And thanks to Janice Plastino's advice that I attend the employment fair at the annual convention of the National Dance Association, and it was not advice, it was an order. I was employed on the faculty at Iowa State University, where I taught dance for many years before going into administration. I retired just a few years ago as the assistant director of their University Honors Program. As a retiree, I have been downsizing and going through those boxes and albums of things that we keep, and I found a folder full of things that I had kept from UC Irvine. There was one of those syllabus sheets that your mother talked about on the clipboard, where we used to check off what we had taught and not taught during the classes. I had a worksheet from Jim Penrod's notation class that I had kept to prove that once upon a time I had been able to read love on notation. I had one of Olga Maynard's pop quizzes, for those of you who might remember those, which was a full sheet of paper with tables, squares. First column, Sleeping Beauty, Swan Lake, The Leaves Are Fading, Afternoon of a Fawn, Romeo and Juliet. Next column, choreographer, year premiere, composer, costume designer, premiere cast. You would finish those and she would say, now you know what you don't know. And we would go on. And then I found a table that I had made myself. And this was as I was preparing to become a teacher. And I sat down one afternoon, I suppose, and thought about my best teachers. And then the qualities that made them the best teachers in my mind. Was it the energy they brought to the classroom? Was it the fact that they had real world experience? Was it their knowledge of the subject matter? Was it their ability to communicate, to set high standards, and have us aspire to meet those standards? Many of the people we have talked about today were on that list. But for me, the one who ticked all those boxes, it was Jan Plastino. Real world knowledge, everything from dancing in the cage at Whiskey A Go-Go to taking Penrod Plastino Movement Theater to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. Energy, Jan came into the classroom like a gale force wind. All right, let's do this. We contracted and released, we fell, we recovered, we soared, we leapt, we slid. And at least once, we sat on the floor, backs ramrod straight, arms in second, while she took a very long phone call in the corner office, watching us the entire time and issuing a sharp yep if she saw one of us move. She laughed and we laughed. Jan's classroom was one of joyous work. As a teacher, she brought us forward as dancers, and she gave us a deeper understanding of how we moved and how we could move better and more safely. But most of all, she showed us how it was done, not only in movement, but in life. Because Jan was not just a dancer, she was also an author. Jan, the last time I checked, The Dancer Prepared was still on the bookshelf at Iowa State University. She was a dancer and a scholar, the only one of our founding faculty with a PhD. Earned while she was teaching us, by the way. I know this because I typed the dissertation. She was a dancer and an academic. As important as it was in our department and as unique as it was that we had teachers who had to earn their living within the studio on the stage, it was also important that we had teachers who understood how universities worked. And Janice was that person. She served in many, many roles that benefited us and that benefited the department. She was a dancer and a professional in the National Dance Association, a founder of the National Dance Educators Association, on the board of directors of the Performing Arts Medicine, a pioneer in the field of dance medicine. And she also showed us that you can have a life outside the studio. As a friend, as a parent, as a spouse, that all of those things could be a part of a life of a dancer. Janice Plastino taught us a lot more than dance, and a lot more than steps. And on behalf of the Dance Legacy Project, I am very proud to present her this recognition that says, in appreciation and recognition of her outstanding dedication to ISU dance and championing legacies through education and artistic excellence. Janice, would you come up, please?
She never said no. She never said, that can't be done. She'd go, okay, and we'd go. That was so far out, it's unbelievable. Thank you, Karen. You really were amazing. Really. All I want to do is tell you some of the weird things that happened. I remember Barbara Plum teaching ballet for exam. And Lauren was there. Let's do Lauren. With the pencil. And Barbara's teaching me this. Barbara. Okay. So she gets up. Now Barbara had to be 60s. Had to be 60s. She wasn't thin anymore, but she had that bearing. She took a position, we're going to do that. And then we're going to do a triple pirouette and land in fifth. And somebody said, some smart ass, show us Mrs. Plum. had Elle teaching modern 2 exams. Now, Elle was not a great modern teacher. He admitted it. He hated it. He loved ballot, as we all know. He was the world's greatest. So he was going to do a fall. Now, have you all ever remembered or ever seen Elle Gabriel do a fall? I mean, seriously, did anybody in class ever see Elle do a fall?
Yeah.
You did? Oh, she was Betsy. It was because he was still really young, right? He never did a fall. Well, somebody said, you're going to do a fall, right? So somebody go back to it, blah, blah, blah. He gets down on his knees, falls gracefully down, comes back, and gets up. And he says, now I want you to improve on that, right? Never saw Elle fall, ever, 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 ever. I think the best thing that I did at Irvine, I did a lot of bad things, a lot of it. But the best thing I did was start the dance science. I have been recognized now as founder of the field of dance science. I will say, is Lisa still here? I am so sorry that it's not #1 now. University of Texas, Chapman College is now being recognized as one of the top dance science programs in the country, and it's because of Robin Kish, who graduated from here in 2002? Two, right? Oh, yes. Anyway, it is really a phenomenal field, and we are starting to see some changes in teaching. It's not happening in the world of hip hop or of commercial dance, and that is a real problem. Is there anybody in here who is teaching commercial dancers at all? None of you. Do any of you have any students who are going to do that? I know so many of you. I want you to stand. Oh, Betsy does. Good. Would all of you who are chair of a department stand up?
I know, we have people teaching commercial, and actually he's graduate there.
Really? Raoul, please. Excellent. Oh, yes. Wow.
Yes, he's teaching commercial, plus his.
All of you who are chairs of departments. Where's Bob? One of the things I really, when I first started teaching here, UCLA was the chair of dance, right? And Alma Hawkins was the chair. I don't know if any of you remember Alma. She would not approve Warren being appointed at the new University of California. He had no degrees. Not only that, he had no experience in public education, not high school, not anything, no kids, no nothing, right? And so she tried to stop him. Clayton Garrison went to the Regents, God bless him, and got Eugene through. It just simply wasn't done. That was a significant difference in dance education. Also, Irvine was the first university to use dance with ballet as the basis of the curriculum. It had never been done before, and Alma just came and blew the curriculum. It was so amazing. And Barbara and Eugene put together the curriculum on set in Hollywood between takes. And they would work and work and work, and Barbara was really bright, really smart. Did not have the education to take her where she should have gone, because she was really tough. And her podiatrist. How many got podiatrist? She was on, man. If she was on, and today some of the research that's coming out, what she used to know intuitively about the foot, she knew exactly what point shoes to put on those feet. She just knew, and it took forever, but she took her time. I don't even know what happened to the podiatrist.
She has it.
Does she have it?
She does. Where is she here? Does she?
I don't know, because it's a really wonderful, very simple instrument that is incredible. Anyway, that's some of this stuff. All of you are tired. I'm tired. I'm old. I'll tell you, aging sucks. And there's nothing you can do about it. And I'll leave you with one thing that Martha Graham said. know Martha Graham, right? She said, it's not fair, and it's not right, and it's shitty, and it is what it is. Now get me on stage.
I want to ask you, how many of you were in a faculty choreographed piece? Almost all. All shippers. It used to be, we were directed for UCI, is that every student would be put on stage, directed and choreographed by a faculty member, or by an outside choreographer. I don't know if it's that way now, but no matter what, every student got on stage, on main stage, and worked with a working choreographer. And I think that's one of the great legacies of UCI. Don't you?
Thank you, Dr. Plastino.
You were in my dissertation.
I was, and I was in the Viola Dream, I believe.
The violet, yes.
And I am
The one with the jeans jacket. It was set in 4 different universities, by the way. That little sheet has 32 people in it.
I want to invite anyone who wants to visit with Dr. Plastino to stick around. We are over time. You've been terribly patient. I hope you enjoyed the stories. We enjoyed putting this together very much. Thank you for coming. It's very good.
Rita and for Judi. Come here. Come over here, you two. Open it so they can see.
Here we go. Okay.
This is really a big deal.
Oh my goodness.
It's a mouse pad.
Oh, that is so cute. Our names are now UCI Dance Alumni Organization.
You now have a new name. You're the UCI Dance Alumni Organization because that's all I could come up with. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. You had a great time. Wonderful.
Our next project is, we're doing scholarships next, right, Jen? Yep. Scholarships for Eve and Lisa got the education students.